At dinner, my son David suddenly raised his voice, his words slicing through the air like knives. "You are the greatest disgrace of my life. A pathetic old failure, not even a shadow of Mom's new husband. I've always wished you weren't my father." A week later, fate came knocking mercilessly at his door. No more money, no car, no place to stay. And then, a sudden call from my ex-wife rang out not just news, but the beginning of a storm that was about to break. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. In our small, cozy home in Austin, the rich, spicy aroma of roasted lamb still lingered in the air, mingling with the fading scent of cooling cheese pizza. It was a spring evening. Outside, a fine drizzle tapped against the windows, and fragile gusts of wind slipped in through the cracked frame, carrying the cool breath of the distant Colorado River. David, 34, sat across from me, stabbing his fork violently into the last slice of pizza. Sarah, my 3 one-year-old daughter, sat on my right, her usual smile gone, mouth agape, hands trembling as they covered her lips, eyes wide in frozen shock. We had been making small, half-hearted talk about the weather, work, and the lilac bushes in the garden. Then suddenly, the clatter of fork and knife slammed against the table, a thundering crash like a gunshot tearing through the stillness of the room. "You are a miserable failure," David spat, his voice laced with venom. "But Mark is different. He's the real deal, Rolls-Royce, real estate, million-dollar projects. That's the kind of man who deserves respect. He's the one I'll call father." His words hung heavy in the air, like a hammer strike. My chest tightened. I gripped my water glass so hard that the condensation trickled between my fingers. But I said nothing. Not yet. Behind David hung an old family photo, its colors fading with time taken 13 years ago, at Laura's birthday, my ex-wife. I remembered it vividly. Friends gathered around, a backyard barbecue of pasta, grilled skewers, heaping bowls of salad, and a 2-tier cake glowing under candlelight. The air then had been warm, alive, joyful. Now, that photo was nothing but shattered fragments of a broken past. "David, that's not fair," Sarah finally burst out, her voice steady yet choked with the threat of tears. She leaned forward, her chair creaking. "Dad sacrificed his whole life to raise us. He didn't just build this house. He provided every meal, every night of shelter, every drop of sweat for this family. I don't understand how you can be so cruel as to erase all of that love." David sneered, his eyes flashing with contempt. "Cruel? Look at him. 68 years old and still breaking his back at construction sites, scraping for pennies. Mark is the man who knows how to live on top. And him? He's just a worthless loser." He shoved his chair back, the legs screeching across the tiled floor with a spine-chilling scrape, and stood. My mind flashed back to the years after the divorce, when Laura walked away chasing a better life. David had just turned 21 then, and I handed him the keys to a brand new Kia Forte. I remember how proud I had been, but he only shrugged. "Yeah, thanks, I guess, but Mark has a Rolls-Royce." Since then, he refused to work, refused to try. I carried the rent, the bills, everything, while he chased empty illusions of luxury that would never come true. "David, sit down," I finally said, my jaw clenched, each word cutting cold and sharp. "We are family, and no one, not even you, speaks like that." "Ha, family?" He barked out a hollow laugh. "You're the one who's held me back all these years. Mark understands me. He gives me real guidance, real opportunities. You're outdated, worthless." He grabbed his jacket, heavy footsteps thudding across the floor, and slammed the door behind him. Sarah rushed to me, clutching my hands, her eyes brimming red with tears. "Don't listen to him, Dad. He's wrong. You are the best father we could ever have. For years, you gave up everything to protect us. He's just jealous, that's all." She wrapped her arms around me, her embrace warm and steady, as though trying to mend the wound carved into my chest. "I'll talk to him later. I love you, Dad. I'll always love you." The house sank into silence. No more voices, only the echo of words that lingered like knives cutting deeper into the heart of a father. I remained seated, my eyes fixed on the cluttered dining table, half-eaten plates of food, crumpled napkins, the roasted meat congealed in its cold sauce. The scene was a mirror of the fracture inside me. My mind spun, fragments of betrayal piecing themselves together into a bitter mosaic. How had it all come to this? David lived comfortably in the house I had bought for him, drove the car I paid to maintain, while day after day he showered praise on Mark, the polished 58-year-old businessman who appeared right after the divorce. Mark, with his tailored suits and smug smile, always whispered into Laura's ear that he would elevate the entire family. And me? I was the one who bent my back under the blazing Texas sun, not only laying brick and stone to build houses, but also sweating blood to construct a future for my children. The faded photograph dangling on the wall mocked me, a cruel reminder of sacrifices now dismissed, belittled, and spat upon. The kitchen clock ticked softly, each second carving deeper into the heavy silence. I had no will to clear the table, or even rise from my chair. Rage swirled within me, simmering, sharpening like a whetstone grinding against itself. David's words still pressed against my skull, words I had swallowed in silence for years. Enough. If David wished to see me as a failure, then he would have to learn how to live without me holding him up. The line had to be drawn. The air in the backyard was sharp, with the chill of early-season winds, raindrops pattering against the eaves, the scent of damp earth mingling with the sweet, delicate fragrance of lilacs. The soothing rhythm of rain falling against the soil carried a quiet calm, yet it only made the weight inside me grow heavier. The dining room light still glowed, spilling warm gold through the glass panes light that should have brought comfort, but now only underscored my solitude. I opened the fridge, pulled out a beer, the can icy and slick with condensation. Each heavy step echoed faintly on the tiled floor, as though my strength had been drained after years of carrying burdens. Outside, the Austin sky stretched wide, glittering with thousands of stars like diamonds scattered across black velvet. I cracked open the can, the sharp hiss filling the air, foam spilling slightly over the rim. I took a long pull, the bitterness searing down my throat, stoking the bitter fire already raging inside me. Pacing back and forth across the dew-soaked grass, David's words replayed in my mind, each repetition pouring fuel onto the fire I had kept buried for years. I sat down on the old wooden chair on the porch, the one I had built with my own hands, tied to countless memories, both bitter and sweet, afternoons spent reflecting on the rises and falls of life. The peeling paint, the cracks etched by time, stood as silent witnesses to my endurance. Memory dragged me backward. I recalled the day I bought David his house, 8 years after the divorce. He was 27 then, restless and discontent, flitting from job to job, abandoning one plan after another. He excused himself, blaming me for not understanding him. "Dad, I need a stable place to start over," he pleaded, his tone a blend of desperation and calculation. And I did what any father would do. After years of grinding labor, lean meals, and saving every dime, I scraped together enough for the down payment on a small suburban apartment, quiet, airy, peaceful. The mortgage had to be in my name, his credit was wrecked, drowning in reckless debt and excess. I remember that day vividly. The sharp tang of fresh paint stung our noses, dust clung to the floor and walls, the room still bare and hollow. Standing there beside him, I felt proud. "This is your chance, David," I told him. He smiled, patted my back. But only months later, the payments slid back into my account. "Just this once," Dad turned into, "just until I do something big." I drank deeper from the can, inhaling sharply, letting the alcohol burn. A memory from last Christmas came rushing back. The room had been still, the tree glowing with twinkling lights, presents wrapped in shimmering paper beneath it. On the table, fragrant glazed ham, steaming pumpkin soup, sizzling steak, mulled wine. everything laid out with care. David opened the envelope I handed him. Inside was a check to cover his car repairs. He smirked faintly, his tone cold, dismissive. "Thanks, but Mark's about to invest in my idea." He folded the check neatly, walked away without a second glance. Always Mark. Always about Mark's ideas. That man had wormed his way into my old family, posing as their savior, while I had always been the foundation holding it all together. Years of sacrifice, silence, bending myself for their comfort. But tonight, under the star-scattered sky, the truth blazed clear. It was time to stop funding, stop caring. David had to learn what life meant without a father like me. I crushed the beer can in my hand, the metal splitting with a sharp crack. Outside, the first streaks of dawn spread across the sky, washing black into pale gray. For a moment, dark clouds rolled in, echoing the heaviness in my chest. Yet through them, faint rays of light pierced through. I lifted my gaze, and in that shimmer, a weight began to lift. Resilience, resolve, and the readiness to reclaim myself rose within me, shining clear, like a dewdrop trembling on a leaf, heralding the start of something new. As the first rays of light broke across the horizon, the Austin sky slowly flushed with shades of rose. Dew still clung to the leaves, glistening like tiny pearls in the newborn Sunday. A gentle breeze drifted through, carrying the fragrance of damp grass and foliage, blending with the lively chorus of birds heralding the new day. I had been awake long before dawn, my body fueled by the resolve that had burned within me all night. The stars that had shimmered over the backyard now faded, but their clarity remained etched in my mind like a map pointing me toward what had to be done. I skipped breakfast, reaching only for the cold ring of keys hanging by the door, their chill firm against my palm. Sliding into my old pickup truck, the engine roared to life with its familiar growl, tearing through the quiet of the morning. The suburban streets were still soaked in dew, mist clouding the windshields of cars parked along the curb. I drove straight to David's house, the very one I had once chosen and bought for him, for its safety and convenience. When the house came into view, my chest tightened. The sight was dismal. Weeds choked the path to the front door. Dry leaves and trash scattered across the porch like a place abandoned. The curtains were pulled tight, shutting out the morning light. And there in the driveway gleamed the Kia Forte, its hood polished from a recent wash I had once again paid for. I stepped out, gravel crunching under my shoes, and struck 3 sharp knocks against the door, each like a drumbeat of resolve. From inside came muffled shuffling, then the sound of the lock turning. The door creaked open, and David appeared, hair tousled, eyes glazed from a late night. He wore wrinkled pajamas, his face pale and drawn a far cry from the smug man who had humiliated me at dinner just the evening before. "Dad, what are you doing here so early?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. But then he glanced at me with that same sneer, lips curling in disdain. I stood tall, my voice cold and resolute. "I've come to take back what's mine, David. Hand over the car keys." He blinked, momentarily stunned, as if he couldn't process what he was hearing. Then he let out a brittle, mocking laugh. "What? That's impossible. That car is mine. You gave it to me." "Gave it to you?" I repeated, my tone calm but my gaze sharp as steel. Memory surged back the day I had driven home in a brand-new Camry, a bow tied to its hood like something out of a commercial. He was only 23 then, fresh out of college, jobless, and drifting. Proudly I had told him, "This car will help you start over, David." But he had only shrugged, flashing an arrogant smile, his eyes glowing with empty admiration for his stepfather. "Fine, thanks, but Mark says one day I'll have something way better than this." Those words, hollow and conceited, had pierced me back then. Still, I swallowed the hurt and kept paying for insurance, repairs, and maintenance right up until today. And now, under the morning light, my resolve was unshakable. I pulled a crisp vehicle registration slip from my pocket. "The car is in my name, every bill, Every repair, every cost has been mine. It belongs to me, and today I'm taking it back." David's face tightened, blood rushing hot into his cheeks. He slammed his hand against the wooden door with a loud thud, his voice breaking out in fury. "You can't just barge in here and steal my car in broad daylight. This is illegal, it's theft." I stepped closer, locking eyes with him, my words like iron. "No, David, keeping what you have no right to, that's theft. Hand me the keys or I'll call the police." The air grew thick with tension. Across the street, a neighbor watering her flowers froze, glancing over curiously, the hose spilling water in uneven splashes on the pavement. The cheerful bird song above seemed cruelly out of place against the heavy silence between father and son. David stood rigid, his eyes darting between me and the Camry. He cursed under his breath, then spat his words with venom. "Fine, take it. But don't forget this is the lowest thing you've ever done. Mark was right. You're just a bitter old man who can't accept the truth." He hurled the keys at me, his hand trembling with rage. I caught them, the weight solid in my palm, a small but undeniable victory. Sliding into the driver's seat, the familiar leather pressed against my back. The engine purred smoothly, thanks to the last tune-up I had paid for. In the rearview mirror, I saw David standing on the porch, his face flushed red, arms folded tight, eyes blazing as he watched me pull away. His figure shrank into the distance, but the fury in his gaze burned like a challenge, a warning of battles still to come. Driving through, the streets of Austin stretched out before me, lined with rows of tender young maples just beginning to sprout, their buds reaching for the morning light. Quiet houses lay immersed in the gentle glow of dawn. The early air was still heavy with mist, carrying with it the faint scent of wet grass drifting on the breeze. A surge of determination rose within me, stronger and clearer than ever. The clock on the dashboard ticked minute by minute, and my mind was already prepared for the next step. The Kia Forte carried me smoothly into downtown. To my left, the Colorado River sparkled, catching the morning sun in rippling silver ribbons. I turned into the bank's parking lot, the asphalt still cool from the long night. From the passenger seat, I retrieved a handcrafted crocodile leather briefcase, worn but polished, packed neatly with documents, bank statements, receipts, property deeds, bills. Proof of all the years I had shouldered the burdens my son refused to carry. The glass doors of the bank slid open with a soft whoosh, reflecting the clear blue spring sky above. The lobby was quiet, my footsteps echoing across the polished tile floor. A young woman in a crisp shirt looked up from behind the counter, the glow of the bank's logo still flickering on her computer screen. "Good morning, sir. How may I help you today?" she asked, her voice calm and professional. I placed my ID and the mortgage documents on the counter, spreading them out carefully, my voice steady but firm. "I need to cancel the automatic payments for this account. The property is in my name, but the resident has changed." She nodded, her fingers flying swiftly across the keyboard. As she worked, my mind slipped back to the day those papers were first signed. David had been sprawled lazily across a chair in the realtor's office, eyes glued to his phone, barely lifting his head, while I hunched over the desk, signing page after page. "Thanks, Dad. This place is perfect," he had muttered casually, as if I'd just bought him a convenient gadget. Those careless words weighed down every drop of sweat I had shed, the endless overtime shifts, the calloused hands from long days at the construction site, every dollar I had scraped together for the down payment. Even after Laura left with Mark, I had still fought to give David a stable home. "All the information checks out," the clerk finally said, printing out a form. "Just sign here to stop the automatic transfers. We'll notify the resident, but it may take a few days." I gripped the pen and pressed firmly. The ink slid smoothly across the page, but my hand trembled slightly. A sting rose at the corner of my eyes, my throat tightening. I knew I was doing the right thing, yet the quiet ache of a father's love still surged painfully within me. "All right, thank you," I said, my voice hoarse. Just then, My phone erupted, its sharp ring cutting through the quiet lobby. A few customers and employees turned to stare as I stepped back near a potted plant to answer. David's voice exploded through the speaker, nearly shattering my eardrum. "Dad, what the hell is going on? The bank just called me. They said the payments have been canceled. Are you trying to throw me out on the street? This is my house." I tightened my grip on the phone, but my voice stayed calm, sharp as a blade. "That's my house, David. The deed carries my name. My money has kept it standing all these years. You were never the legal tenant. You were just a guest, every bill, every expense, paid by me. You've had years to grow up, but you never did." On the other end, his furious breathing cracked, his anger crumbling into desperation. "Dad, you can't do this. Where am I supposed to go? I'll lose everything. You're destroying my life over a few angry words." I cut him off with a cold laugh. "This isn't about a few words. This is the result of years you've spent leeching off me while bowing to Mark. It's time you stood on your own feet. And it's time you learned to take responsibility for the words that come out of your own mouth." His voice broke, trembling now with sobs. Wait, Dad. Please, let me explain. I didn't mean it. I only said those things because of Mark. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Don't do this to me. Please." I drew in a slow breath, then ended the call with a decisive press of my thumb. The flat beep of the disconnected line echoed sharp and final. A heavy silence followed, but it was a silence filled with power. His pitiful pleas no longer weakened me. Instead, they brought a quiet satisfaction, as though I had finally reclaimed justice for myself. The phone kept buzzing violently, ringing again and again. David clung to the line, begging, pleading, desperate, but I ignored it, slipping the phone back into my pocket. Each of my footsteps struck firmly against the tile as I walked out of the bank. My chest felt light, my stride strong and unshaken. The bright sunlight poured down on me, blazing like a halo over a man who had chosen honesty, courage, and resolve. In my mind, fleeting images stirred. Who would my son run to now? Mark, or some other crutch to lean on? But it no longer mattered. What mattered was this. Today, I had finally reclaimed my pride. Returning home, the familiar creak of the front door echoed as I pushed it open. Clutched tightly in my hand was the worn leather briefcase containing all the important documents, my lifeline, as though it held classified data, the only shield I had for the battle ahead. The drive back from downtown had been calm. The KIA Forte glided smoothly along the winding riverside road. A cool morning breeze drifted through the window, carrying with it the scent of damp grass. The early sunlight was soft, not harsh, casting golden ripples across the Colorado River, each shimmer streaming toward the horizon as if chasing the sun itself. The bustle of the city, car horns, hurried footsteps, muffled conversations seemed to fade behind me, leaving only stillness and resolve in my chest. I set my keys down on the granite countertop, their metallic clatter echoing through the empty kitchen. Pouring myself a cup of coffee from the pot I'd prepared earlier, I watched the steam curl lazily into the air. One sip, and the sweet bitterness hit my senses all at once, comforting, yet a sharp reminder that everything had changed. Sinking into the old massage chair that had supported me through countless years, I felt a rare moment of ease, a fragile pause after the storm. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, scattering golden patches across the wooden floor. A sudden ting-ting jolted me from my thoughts. The phone screen lit up. "Sarah." I opened the message. "Dad, David just called me, panicked. He said you've cut him off completely. What's happening?" I took another sip of coffee, exhaled slowly, and typed back simply, "I just took back what's mine. He'll be fine." Before I could put the phone down, it rang again this time, an incoming call. I answered, leaning back as the vibration matched the rhythm of my breathing. "Hello, sweetheart," I said calmly. "Dad, please tell me the truth." Sarah's voice trembled with panic. "David's screaming about the house, the car. He said he's going to Mark for help, and Mark threatened to handle you, to teach you a lesson. Are you okay?" Her words hit me like a wave. I set the cup down, my palm tightening into a fist. Mark, always him. The snake in the polished suit, slithering deeper into my family after the divorce. I walked to the window, gazing out at the peaceful street, children riding their bikes in the spring sun, their laughter drifting farther away, so starkly different from the storm brewing in my chest. "I'm fine, Sarah," I answered steadily. "David's just lashing out. Tell me, what exactly did Mark promise him?" She sighed, hesitant. "He said he'd cover the mortgage temporarily, but only if David cut ties with you completely. Mark even mocked you, said you've been spineless all these years. And David, he believes him. He's angry, desperate." I nodded. Of course David would run straight into his arms. My eyes shifted to the faded photo on the mantel. The four of us on that 4th of July picnic, back when Laura was still here, before it all fell apart. A year later she left, and Mark appeared. I remembered vividly at David's birthday. Mark had given him a luxury watch, overshadowing the toolbox I brought. "Your dad's good at building houses," Mark had sneered, "but I'm the one building the future." David had beamed with pride, and I swallowed my pride and paid the tuition bill the very next month. "Thank you for telling me," I said, my tone now laced with steel. "Mark's playing his game, but I won't back down. This is about fairness." "I know, Dad, but please be careful." David sounded deadly serious. After the call ended, I scrolled through David's old messages, each one nothing more than demands for money, month after month. Not a single word of gratitude. The betrayal cut deeper with every word, yet it clarified my resolve. The phone rang again. Laura. The air in the room seemed to tighten. I picked up, standing by the window as the calm scene outside unfolded. "William, what are you doing?" Laura's voice was frantic, accusatory. "David's losing his mind. He says you took the car, stopped the payments. Have you lost it?" My hand gripped the window frame, the wood cold beneath my palm. "I've lost nothing, Laura. I only reclaimed what was mine, the car I bought, the house I paid for. David's had more than enough time to grow up." She faltered, her voice breaking. "But he's your son. Mark and I are worried sick. He even threatened to get a lawyer if you don't stop." I let out a cold laugh. Mark again, always pulling strings from the shadows. I paced slowly, deliberately calm. A memory surged. After the divorce, Laura moved in with him. And I still paying for braces, for vacations while he stood in the spotlight, mocking me as a blindly indulgent, weak father. "A lawyer?" I replied, my voice low and firm. "Let him try. Everything's in my name, Laura. This isn't cruelty. This is justice. Everything David has came from my sweat and sacrifice." She paused, then shifted to pleading. "William, please, for old time's sake. David needs stability. Mark says you're being unreasonable. He's ready to step in, but only if you stop." I stopped pacing, my jaw tightening. Outside, the light was fading, clouds gathering. I knew too well Mark's help was nothing but chains. "Tell him this. I won't be the silent provider anymore. David has to learn. Otherwise, he'll always live off others." Laura was silent for a moment, then her voice cracked. "You don't understand. He said he'll cut you off completely. We're still family, William. Please, fix this before it's too late." The line went dead. The silence pressed heavy against the walls. I set the phone down, opened the drawer, and pulled out a fresh notebook. Blank pages. I flipped to the first one, pen poised. Ideas poured in, counterplans, strategies, step by step, to reclaim my dignity. The pen paused midair, ready. A strange calm washed over me. I was prepared for a confrontation not of rage, but of fairness. A battle I no longer feared. The notebook still lay open on the passenger seat, its pages filled with frantic notes after the chaotic call with Laura. I started the truck, its familiar roar cutting through the stillness of the Austin afternoon. The spring sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the dashboard as I turned off the driveway. At a red light downtown, I scrolled quickly through my contacts. My finger stopped at the number of a lawyer, an old acquaintance from failed construction deals years ago. There was no time to hesitate. The alliance against me was tightening, and I needed to build a fortress immediately. Green light. I pressed the gas, heading toward his office on the edge of town. In the rear-view mirror, the shimmering light of the Colorado River reminded me that beneath its calm surface, currents were always swirling, ready to sweep everything away. The red brick building came into view. I pulled over and stepped inside, greeted by the scent of fresh coffee. The receptionist nodded, motioning me forward. Moments later, I shook hands with Robert, the attorney. His grip was firm, his eyes sharp behind metal frames, his desk piled high with files. "William, what's going on?" he asked, leaning back in his chair, his deep voice taut with concern. I spread out the notebook, each line item crammed with urgency. Reclaim the car, stop the mortgage, threats from David and Mark. I locked eyes with him. "Robert, I need the truth laid bare. All the assets are in my name, but they're threatening lawsuits. I cannot let Mark twist the law into his weapon. Tell me straight, am I truly safe? And his company, does it have any weak point I can strike if I must?" Robert sifted through the stack, his pen tapping a steady rhythm on the desk. His voice dropped low. "You were wise to come early. The house, the car, the ownership is clear, beyond dispute. They might try dragging you into court with claims of cruelty or emotional harm, but we'll crush that with records proving you supported them for years. As for Mark, I checked. His company has a few quiet tax debts. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to ignite if he escalates. I'll draft a warning letter so the moment he oversteps, we strike back." His words poured into me like concrete setting into a foundation. We dug deeper, his questions sharp as drills cutting into bedrock. "Any joint accounts? Any shared investments?" I shook my head. While he made copies, memories surged back. The first time Mark appeared after the divorce, handing David his business card with that slick smile. "Come with me, kid. Your dad's only good with a hammer. I'll build you an empire." I had swallowed my anger and still paid their rent. Now Robert handed me a way forward. "Transfer full ownership of the house immediately. Once the paperwork is filed, they'll have no choice but to show their true colors." I left with a thicker file under my arm. The narrow hallway echoed with my solitary footsteps, but the weight on my shoulders had lightened. One move wasn't enough. I needed more layers of defense. I headed straight to the accountant's office across town. Emma, the accountant, looked up from a desk buried in spreadsheets. "William, it's been a while. Sit down. Tell me everything." I laid out the statements, pointing at each transfer. "I've cut support to David, but Mark will look for loopholes. Check for me." She adjusted her glasses, typing swiftly. "Your accounts are clean. Nothing tied to David. But Mark's company, I've seen a few irregular deductions on their tax files. If you want, the IRS would be very interested." Her voice was even, but her eyes glinted cold. I nodded, scribbling quick notes. "Freeze credit. Set up anonymous reports. Protect the retirement fund first, and remember, if they sue, you can countersue to reclaim gifts." She printed a summary. As I held it, winter memories resurfaced, draining my retirement savings to bankroll David's failed startup, while Mark pocketed his consulting fees. Now, Emma's advice turned that bitterness into a weapon. By the time I left, the sun was sinking. The files in my arms felt heavy, yet clearer than ever. That night, I sat at my desk, the warm glow of the lamp falling over the thick stack of documents. Paper rustled as I sorted them into two piles, legal on the left, financial on the right. I logged into the online portal, fingers racing to transfer the house title. The cursor blinked, my heart pounding. A pause, then a click. The confirmation email popped up instantly, like the opening gunshot of a war. Next came the certified letters. I sealed the envelopes, stamps pressed firm, one for David, one for Mark. The printer hissed out copies, while in my mind I saw Mark raising a glass at Laura's remarriage, David beaming beside him, while I, the outsider, paid the next month's tuition. I logged into the IRS whistleblower portal, typing in every detail Emma had flagged. The suspicious deductions, the matching dates. One more click. The screen's glow reflected in my eyes steel-hard determination. I paced, waiting for confirmation, every second stretching. Outside, the sun vanished. The sky deepened into purple dusk. The houses lit up one by one, each window glowing like hundreds of eyes watching. Sealing the final envelope, my phone lit up, a warning from David, his name flashing relentlessly. At the same time, my computer pinged. An email from Mark, the subject line in all caps, "Stop interfering immediately." I opened it. Threats spilled across the screen, lawsuits, accusations, calling me a harasser. A forgotten coffee cup stained the papers with a brown ring, a small blemish amid a brewing storm. Before I could reply, the phone rang, Mark's name flashing. I answered on speaker. His voice burst out, stripped of charm, seething with rage. "William, you senile old fool. Do you think I don't see you behind this IRS mess? Freezing accounts, tampering with my company? You'll regret this. You're destroying David just out of spite and jealousy." I stood, looking out at the flickering Austin streetlights. "Spite? I'm only reclaiming what's mine, Mark. My sweat built the empire you leech from. Threaten all you want. My lawyer is ready." His voice rose, shrill with fury. "Lawyer? My people chew up men like you before breakfast. Back down or I'll bury you in legal fees. David doesn't deserve this. You're ruining him." I cut him off, my voice cold as steel. "Ruining him? I'm teaching him something you never could. Responsibility." The clash of our words was like swords striking sparks. He kept ranting, restraining orders, countersuits, threats of destruction. I ended it. "Save it for the judge." Click. The call ended. Less than a minute later, pounding shook the front door like thunder. I stepped into the hallway, peered through the peephole. David disheveled, hair wild, eyes blazing. I cracked the door, the chain still latched. "David, not now," he roared, shoving hard, the door rattling. "Let me in, Dad. You've taken the car, the house, now Dylan, no. Mark says we're under audit. You're destroying everything." I unlatched the chain and stepped back. He stormed inside, breath ragged, face gaunt. "Destroying? You've destroyed yourself, David, living off me while calling Mark your father. It's time you stood on your own." He jabbed a finger at me, voice cracking with venom. "You don't get it. Mark gave me a house. Loans, he's better than you ever were. Admit it, you're just bitter." I clenched my fist, memories flashing of Laura's words after the divorce. "Mark is better for us, William. Let go." I had let go by shouldering their burdens. Now I met my son's eyes, my voice steely. "Better? I chose you, David. Every paycheck, every drop of sweat. What Mark calls help is nothing but chains. Either you break free or you bear the consequences." He staggered, screaming, knocking a family photo askew. "Consequences? Mark and I will sue you. We'll take everything." I stared him down, voice flat, final. "Then sue. Justice is on my side." He slammed the door as he stormed out, its echo leaving the house heavy with silence. I stood silently by the window as David rushed outside and jumped into the Kia Forte, no doubt Mark's car. The tires screeched, leaving black scorch marks on the pavement before the car disappeared into the night. The air fell quiet, yet the atmosphere still trembled with the weight of unfinished business, with consequences gathering just out of sight but impossible to escape. The next morning, the roar of a delivery truck engine broke the stillness outside. The mail carrier stepped down, arms straining under a thick stack of envelopes. I walked out, the warm spring sunlight spilling over the sealed parcels, their red stamps stark and cold, the official insignia of legal process. Back in the kitchen, I tore one envelope open. Foreclosure papers slid across the table, each page printed in crisp black ink. David's house had officially entered repossession. The deadline was fixed. There was no way back. That afternoon, while driving, The Camry's engine hummed steadily beneath my foot. I slowed as my eyes caught the familiar house. A moving truck was parked at the curb, workers hauling boxes under a gray, heavy sky. David stood there, shoulders slumped, pointing weakly as though trying to hide the emptiness on his face. The lawn, once neatly trimmed, had been consumed by weeds, sprouting through cracks like scars, spreading wide a mirror of his life itself. I didn't stop. I simply watched from a distance, feeling a strange emotion rise within me, not gloating, but a quiet, resolute satisfaction. Reality had finally come for my son. The phone vibrated as I drove along the river. I pulled over, the water lapping softly against the rocks. On the other end, David's voice trembled, broken with sobs. "Dad, please." The foreclosure notice came. "They're throwing everything out. I have nowhere to go. Mark's place was only temporary. Please help me. Just this once." The sound pierced straight into my chest. This desperate voice was nothing like the arrogance and rage of last night. For a moment, memories flooded back. David, at 12 years old after a violent storm. Lightning splitting the sky, rain slashing down, the whole neighborhood plunged into darkness. He had clutched my hand, trembling, his eyes pleading, as though if I could just bring the lights back, his entire world would be safe again. I had fired up the old generator, restored the glow, and in his gaze I was his anchor, his guiding light. But that boy was long gone. Years of indulgence and unconditional shelter had twisted David into a man of entitlement, arrogance, and weakness. And now, his choices had carved consequences that could no longer be avoided. "Just this once?" I replied, my voice slow, heavy as stone. "Son, your whole life has been built on just this once. You've turned it into an excuse to dodge responsibility, to push the cost onto others. This isn't about helping anymore. It's about living, or continuing to destroy yourself. And I will not enable you any longer." David choked out hurried promises. "I'll change. I'll cut Mark out. I'll apologize. Please, Dad, don't let them put me on the street." Each plea clawed at my heart. I could hear the pain, the collapse, the ghost of the child he once was. My heart longed to soften, but reason held firm. If I saved him again, he would never stand on his own. I tightened my grip on the wheel, drew a deep breath, then spoke, my voice strained but unyielding. "Apologies can't rebuild respect. To fall and rise on your own, that's the path you must walk. When you are truly ready to begin again, call me. But for now, you must face the weight of your own life." I ended the call. The dial tone rang sharp and final. The river kept flowing, carrying the glitter of the fading sun, reminding me that time and consequence wait for no one. Later, I messaged my lawyer. He confirmed all legal proceedings remained in motion. Every attempt by David to delay had failed. I tucked the stack of notices into my desk drawer. The rustle of paper sounded like the cold whisper of justice. And in my mind, another thought surfaced. Mark. His business audit was drawing near, rumors of misconduct already spreading. The net of justice was tightening. No one would escape. David was only the opening act, the final chapter that would be reserved for his stepfather. I had neatly arranged David's foreclosure papers on the table, the sharp edges of the pages as cold as blades stabbing at memories that had never truly healed. Clutching the thick file in my hands, I felt as though I were carrying an invisible weapon. With it, I drove to a quiet cafe in downtown Austin. Still holding the evidence, I settled into a chair, let my shoulders drop, and drew a long breath. This was a fleeting moment of rest, before stepping into a far greater confrontation. Beyond the glass window, the stream of people and cars surged like the gears of a massive clock, every motion ordered, as though the entire city itself approved of the path I had chosen. In the corner of the table, steam from a freshly brewed latte mingled with the soft rustle of a newspaper. I took a slow sip, then dialed Robert, my lawyer. "William, I have news." His voice was firm, unshaken. Emma has marked them, Mark's tax violations, fraudulent deductions, inflated expenses, shady offshore dealings. Everything has surfaced. I opened the folder, the papers whispering beneath my hands. It's time to act. Anonymous tip to the IRS, or the official channel. There was a brief pause. I heard papers shifting on his end of the line. Both, he replied. I'll submit a formal complaint through my connections. Trust me. Violations of this kind can spark an immediate investigation. Send me the documents today, we strike the match. I nodded, scribbling quick notes on a napkin. My mind flashed back to a distant memory. Mark, arrogant, raising a glass at some lavish party. Laura clinging to his arm as he boasted, I have everything. I give them all the things William never could. Back then, I had stood quietly in the background, calloused hands buried in my pockets, having just wired money for their trip. He fancied himself a visionary. Yet now, I was the one exposing the cracks in his rotting empire. Ending the call, I scanned and sent the documents. Outside the window, Austin's streets pulsed with life, headlights streaming like gears turning within the machine of my plan. That afternoon, the first ripples appeared. The local financial news broke like lightning. Mark's company was under suspicion for tax fraud. Major clients withdrew, investors demanded their money back. On social media, calls for boycotts spread like wildfire. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. By nightfall, a voice message appeared, his tone no longer arrogant, but trembling, uneasy. William, whatever you're doing, stop. We can talk. Please, don't drag me down. The panic in his voice made me smile coldly. His empire was shaking, its polished walls beginning to crack. Late at night, a knock pulled me away from the kitchen table, where the lamp cast long shadows. I opened the door. David stood there, shoulders slumped, eyes hesitant. He stepped inside slowly, his gaze lingering on the house, on the family photos above the fireplace. I could see it in his eyes, silent regret, a yearning for the happiness he had once known, for the home he had taken for granted. His voice came rough, trembling. Dad, I was wrong. The foreclosure, Mark's downfall, it all hit me at once. I called you a failure while living off the life you built. I'm sorry, truly. His words broke into sobs. He fell to his knees, clutching my legs, weeping like a child. In that moment, memories flooded back. The day I built him and his friends a treehouse, his laughter ringing through the air, the warm hugs after each scraped knee. Those were the happiest moments of my life, things Mark could never steal. I bent down, my voice choked yet resolute. Son, an apology is only the beginning. What I need to see is action. I raised you with sweat and an entire lifetime, never asking for thanks. Mark, he gave only empty promises. Now you see the difference. David nodded through his tears, then pulled out a small envelope, inside a handwritten letter. Tomorrow I have a job interview, manual work the way you once started. I won't depend on anyone anymore. I finally see that Mark only used me to hurt you. Just then, the door opened again. Sarah walked in, her eyes worried but softening when she saw the scene. Dad, David texted me. Is everything okay? David turned to her, his voice breaking. Sis, I was wrong. Dad was always right. I need to walk my own path. The three of us sat around the dining table. I brought out red wine, roast chicken, ham, steak, golden fries. The fragrance filled the room, wrapping around us like an embrace. For the first time in years, my family raised our glasses together. Sarah smiled. David sobbed, clinging tightly to me. My heart swelled with a happiness I had thought long lost, the moment of forgiveness, the moment of a new beginning. After dinner, I slid the drawer shut with a thud, burying the old files inside. The sound echoed like a final full stop. The mistakes ended here, never to be repeated. Outside, the night sky stretched wide with stars. I lifted my glass of wine, quietly toasting to a fresh start. Mark remained silent, his empire trembling, but he would pay. Justice never forgets. If this story touched you, Please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, in the top left corner of your screen is the next story, where the greatest secret will be revealed.